Hi there, I am JK, coach and facilitator at Where the Mind Grows. We do coaching in nature, coaching with a green conscience is what we'd usually say. And I work with individuals and businesses and teams who are really looking to do something different for your well-being. I'm going to invite you to listen to this short podcast around mainly the importance of looking after yourself and your well-being and prioritizing those aspects of well-being, like dealing with anxiety and the overwhelm that we're often faced with in this day. And of course, I will be bringing in some tips around nature when it comes to well-being, and particularly sharing with you some ideas of nature connectedness and nature connection in the workplace to help enhance mind and body and reduce stress and overwhelm. Let's start with talking about how busy things are. Even though we might have been stagnant over the last 2 years in various aspects of life, the pace and the hustle and bustle of life is certainly feeling a little bit busier. You find yourself working more at a screen, perhaps, or even just working more in general, or having to blur the boundaries between home and office life. The shifting of roles and responsibilities and the changing of your work priorities can also be a challenge and may have put you in feelings of kind of overwhelm or stress throughout the last couple of years. And if we think about the connection that we all need with people and kind of nature, certainly as well, that I'll talk about today, then we have become detached. We've all heard this kind of disconnection around working alongside our colleagues remotely. You might be someone who's joined a job during the pandemic and haven't even got around meeting everyone face to face yet. Or perhaps someone's joined your team and you're just finding it a little bit different in terms of how you connect with that person and relate with each other and kind of understand each other as well. And as humans, our interconnectedness is very much something that we need. Our wilder lives are filled with news stories that increase our fear and might possibly leave you feeling out of control or a little overwhelmed. And it's hard to kind of filter away from these and not kind of engage in them and them not feed into some of the stuff that you might be feeling about stress and worry and anxiety. And that's before we've even talked about the things that we have to do in a day. We have lots to do in a day. Lots of tasks and responsibilities. We have roles and expectations, which bring us both joy, but also take up time within our day, time that may detract from your space for yourself, or that time for processing all that kind of anxiety and to do. We have places to go and things to get and buy. And of course, we can't avoid talking about the busyness without talking about the many emails that land in our various inboxes each day and how we have to process all of this data. We do a lot in a day, even when we feel like we've done nothing at all. And at the end of the day, you try to switch off by switching on or scrolling instead of strolling. And you get to bedtime and maybe you're totally exhausted and are straight to sleep at the end of all of this. Or perhaps if you're feeling a little bit anxious and worried about how your day's kind of panned out or your week is panning out, then perhaps you're trying to rest and switch off, but you find that your mind is racing or trying to unpick or replay stories from the day that's just gone, or perhaps anticipating and worrying about things that might happen tomorrow as well. This is a lot for our brain. All this stuff can be quite overwhelming and overstimulating for our mind and body. It might leave you feeling stressed or anxious, overwhelmed, tired or confused, or low in mood and motivation. This could affect your well-being or the way that you communicate with others, or how well you feel that you are doing your job and how frustrating or overwhelming that is as well. If we go back to our time as a caveman, and if you don't already know what happens to our busy and often tired brain during these times, is all this information, is triggering these kind of chemical responses in our brain. And it's quite an animalistic response, really, is in that when we were cavemen, we were looking for our woolly mammoths, we were looking for things that might disturb our camp or might disrupt our access to food, water, shelter, those kind of things. But the woolly mammoths that come along these days are things like those emails, those to-do lists, the not quite gauging whether we've connected with someone, or maybe someone uses a word that doesn't quite land right for you and feels quite abrasive to you. And these are the burdens that we carry kind of through the busyness of our day when you're feeling anxious and you're feeling overwhelmed. And inside your mind, what's happening is this heightened response to all these modern day woolly mammoths, and it creates this stimulus within our brain of the autonomic nervous system, where we start to feel those chemicals of adrenaline and cortisol that bring about this feeling of kind of stress or a little bit of panic or nervousness in our body. Is this an email from my boss to tell me that I've done a rubbish job? Or, oh my gosh, this traffic isn't going to move and I'm not going to be able to kind of do my duties for the evening and I'm going to be stuck here all night, not able to unwind. Or, wow, this news is really scary right now. And being dosed with all this, preparing to constantly fight or get angry or retaliate or run away or hide, or even to the point of overwhelm where we maybe freeze and just don't know how to focus or be motivated, or totally overwhelmed to the point that we reach burnout. And of course, we want to kind of avoid these. And in keeping ourselves busy, you might feel disconnected. I often talk about this disconnection with self, like your body's moving, you're carrying your thoughts and your feelings around, but nothing's quite working together in unison. There's not quite that awareness or that shift to be able to change things. And this might happen regularly. This might just happen maybe an hour, a minute, or maybe a day. So I'm inviting you today to think about how you explore nature to help you with some of these feelings and enhance your well-being. Now, your access to nature might be an urban one, perhaps a local park. Maybe you're lucky to have access to broader, wilder green space like a forest, or perhaps an ocean, or a body of still water. Perhaps you're facing your window, looking out of your home office or even your work office onto rolling hills. So let's think about how nature can help us. And if you haven't seen these before, I'm going to introduce you to the 5 pathways to nature connectedness that come from the University of Derby. And you can see here on the slide there, used by the National Trust. So the first pathway to nature, and the simplest thing to do really, is to just actually connect yourself with nature. And we can do that through contact with ourselves in nature, using our senses. And if you haven't done this before and haven't really tuned in with this, then it might feel a little bit strange or a little bit unusual. But it might be that you're starting that through your touch or your sight, noticing the colours or the sensations. Perhaps it's in the scent or taste that the fragrance that sits within the air. Or maybe even listening to a bird song. The next pathway to connect ourselves with nature is around beauty, in finding beauty in the natural world. So when you see a beautiful scene or you recall a lovely kind of memory from a nature space on your last holiday, perhaps, or a fond kind of route that you take with your dog, noticing the beauty of this. And this connection with beauty and nature, we kind of call it something called biophilia, this innate connection. And you might experience this sense of awe and fascination when you really tune into nature, of just like, wow, that's pretty impressive. Another way we can connect with these pathways is through meaning. So using like nature symbolism or metaphors. And we think about those idioms like, can't see the wood for the trees, she came up smelling of roses. This natural language is embedded within our words every day. We talk about growth or getting rooted. Lots of our well-being words are relating to kind of nature and being natural, organic way of living, perhaps. And think about that, about branching out into that nature kind of space and finding meaning in those things as well. And we might find meaning on a park bench with a scene that offers us some kind of relaxation and kind of reflection, or maybe it's a favorite tree that you've got or a favorite plant that you love to have in your house as well. Or perhaps it's that connection and that meaning with something deeper than that. And knowing that actually deep down we are from nature, even though we're very separated from it now. So we can also connect with nature through these pathways of emotion, really tuning into like, actually, what do you feel when you talk about and reflect on your feelings and experiences of nature? When you connect with a pet, perhaps, the fondness that you might innately feel without really consciously kind of tuning in unless you're aware. What are the happy memories that you have of playing out in nature when you were younger, perhaps, or exploring something, whether it's urban or rural? And finally, we can think about compassion. And it's important to be compassionate to ourselves, but in finding that compassion with nature, we can really tune into that emotion and understand what it feels like to be a compassionate human being. That might be in the way that we understand the impact on the climate. Perhaps it's that you make more ethical choices in your products, or perhaps being concerned with the natural world and caring for a little plot in your garden, or rewilding a space that was once a mowed lawn, or even kind of noticing and volunteering opportunities within your local community as well. But if we're going out into nature further, simply just being in it and not trying to do anything or achieve anything might be really helpful for you, particularly when you're thinking about overwhelm and anxiety. There's evidence from a guy called Kaplan who talks about attention restoration theory, believing that just 20 minutes in nature every day will help our busy minds to reset, and will bring back that kind of rejuvenated, re-energized space in our mind where we use that frontal part of our brain, not that animalistic kind of anxiety response. And so nature in itself is this kind of natural medicinal resource really that we've got, that helps to reduce our blood pressure, bring down that stress level, helps us to kind of breathe and be in the present. So how do you bring it into work? Here are a couple of ideas of what you might do in order to explore the concept of nature connectedness when thinking about anxiety and stress and worry and kind of managing workload and work-life balance. It doesn't have to start big. Just take a walk, whether it's a walk on your own. Maybe you decide to take a meeting out into a local nature space, or just even around the block, pausing perhaps if you notice something that is an opportunity for you to connect yourself with the present and with nature. Maybe you make an outdoor space on a bright and sunny day, the office for a while, and take yourself out into that space. Another exercise that can be really helpful when you're feeling like busy head and kind of out of your body, maybe in terms of being able to really connect with feeling well and good in yourself, is to play this little field study, as I call it, a little challenge where you just encourage yourself to find or notice 3 small things in nature every day, maybe for just a week. You can get involved with this on Instagram using the hashtag 3thingsinnature with the number 3. And of course, tag Where the Mind Grows in that if you wanted to kind of engage in that. Now, it's amazing what you can notice here. I've had people suddenly see a whole herd of cows in the distance from their office that they'd not noticed before when they actually attune their attention to these moments of nature. Or someone else was telling me about a tree that had managed to grow through the cracks in the side of a wall. So they'd walked past this every day. After all, when our mind is busy and hurtling, our brain just filters these like precious moments of beauty and awe and interest out. And these are the things that might cheer up your day or help you to change the way that you're feeling. One other thing that you can do is to think about the compass and the directions in which you can explore and put gaze upon, really. And, you can do this simply by going out into nature and just imagining those north, south, east, west, maybe the northwest and the southeast, and kind of just turning yourself around and just taking in what's close by and what's in the distance, what parts of the natural world spring up for you, if any. And if all else fails, you might just want to look up to the sky if you're in a really urban area and like notice the patterns that the clouds are kind of creating. Or maybe if you're looking at night, it's the stars. What do you see? What is near? What is far away? And more importantly, when you engage with that, what's that feeling like for you? So what do you notice when maybe you find a pattern in the sky that looks like something like a hippo, or perhaps you suddenly realize that all surrounding you are these different aspects of nature that you've not really seen before? And what does that feel like as an experience for you? Alongside these ways that we can connect with nature, we can also learn through nature through something called regenerative thinking, which is really thinking about ourselves as part of nature and learning from nature, and nature relatedness. So thinking about what we can observe and understand from the way that nature does things like resilience or managing challenge and change. So learning directly from nature, how it does what it does and how it creates a thriving and resilient life. And wouldn't we like that? Don't we want to be kind of just happy in our own place and our own way, and living in a more relaxed kind of way? So go out into nature. Here's a little activity for you. Go out into nature. Maybe it's a woodland that you've got, or perhaps it's just sitting for a moment on a park bench and taking in the kind of different biodiversity, the different species that are around you, maybe the flowers and the trees, and just noticing and observing. Observation is a really great power tool for us when it comes to kind of learning about from nature and applying this to our well-being. Ask yourself the question, what makes this successful? What makes this ecosystem successful? Maybe you journal or write down or note in your phone sort of 10 words that are coming to mind in terms of the strategies, the capabilities, the beliefs even that this forest or this nature space might have, or its purpose kind of in terms of growing in this space. And look at those 10 words and think about how many of those words might you apply to the strategies for your own well-being as well, to create a more thriving and well-being life for you. And last but by no means least, remember your basic needs. So you might explore a model like Maslow's hierarchy of needs or Manfred Max Neef's human needs to inspire ideas for like a well-being checklist. But ultimately, if we go back to the simplicity of growing a seed into a plant, thinking about what we need, our basic needs, it's very similar to that of a plant. We need to be refreshed. You might be thirsty, you might be hungry, you might need nourishing. That might be food, or it might be reserving energy in some way through rest. Or maybe that thirst is for knowledge, or clarity in some way. Thinking about the ground or the place that you're in and the place that you're aiming to thrive in. What are the conditions like within that environment? Is there anything that you can do to help you feel lighter or brighter or more comfortable? And do you feel safe as well? If you look to these tiny saplings and seeds, they're not going to survive the storms at this stage. They need shelter, and they need protection from certain challenges that might be outside of their own growth and comfort zone. What is it that you need to ask for help with? What is it that you need to do to prioritize your well-being? So think about how a plant might thrive, and using our regenerative kind of thinking and thinking about yourself with your own ecosystem going on internally in mind and body. What are the things that at any point where you feel like your well-being is a little bit challenged or a little bit under strain, what are the things that you could simply do to help you with that before you get into the deeper kind of psychological needs or the bits that need a little bit more exploration? So thank you for joining us on this short but sweet podcast today. I hope that you've found something in here that you're excited to explore or curious about. Curiosity is such a wonderful thing. Perhaps this nature relatedness and connectedness is totally outside of your comfort zone, and so you're delving out into curiosity to explore these and see how they work for you. And you might not want all of them, you might just pick one or two. I always recommend going one thing at a time, one seed at a time. Plant it and explore it and nourish it and see how that grows. And if nothing else today, then just take a moment in nature just to breathe in and out. Maybe close your eyes, feel the wind or the sunshine on your skin. Just take that moment just to bring yourself back to the present. And if you'd like to learn more about nature connection and how nature can be an absolutely awesome facilitator for enhancing your well-being and the well-being of your teams, my name is JK, and you can find us at Where the Mind Grows. Feel free to follow us on social or get in touch if you'd like to create positive change within your life.